My name is Tommy Wharton. I'm part of the Ontario Sport Network team here today. My role is a senior project lead on this specific emergency grant project. I'm also joined here today by David and Bianca, and they're going to introduce themselves right now.
Bianca, go ahead.
So my name is Bianca Bond. I am with Ontario Sport Network, and I am the manager for the National Sport Trust Fund and Digital. David?
And I'm David Siegel. I'm from Impact North. We do marketing and advertising work for Ontario Sport Network, and we've developed the grant system that you are going to be using.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Thank you, Bianca. So just right off the top, I'd just like to do a special thank you to the Government of Ontario, and specifically the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, Culture, Industries for their investment in this specific grant. So this grant is a one-time application-based financial relief fund targeting community-level sport and recreation organizations, clubs, teams, leagues, and associations who have sustained losses due to the impacts of COVID-19. So during this webinar today, you're going to learn about the what, the how, and the why of this particular grant and application. We're going to walk you through the application online platform. Dave will do a very good job of that. We'll talk about the eligibility requirements. We'll share some key timelines, and we'll also answer your questions at the end. Just as a note, you probably saw the pop-up appear. This session is actually being taped, and at the conclusion of this session, and actually we have one at 7 o'clock tonight, tomorrow we're going to be putting these webinars on our OSN landing page website for you to view as well. Also on our OSN webpage, if you scroll down, you'll see a comprehensive list of frequently asked questions. Right now there's 17 of them. And as we're going through these webinars and also receiving specific questions, when we see consistent questions in something that we have not yet answered, we will be updating those frequently asked questions ongoing. So one thing I want to share right off the top is just to put this grant into perspective is there was an announcement on March 8th of this year. Okay, here I'm just going to do a share screen. Excuse me for 1 second. I'll do this and just want to put this grant into context. So this was on March 8th. There was a fantastic and exciting announcement from the ministry on an investment in sport and recreation in the province. This specific webinar today is going to talk about the middle piece. On that day, on March 8th, $30 million was announced in terms of COVID relief for the sector. $20 million respectively went to the provincial sport organizations and multi-sport organizations. So if you're on this call today and you're a member club of, let's say, softball or rowing or diving or figure skating, this particular fund above the highlighted area here, the 20 million, that is available from your respective provincial sport organization or MSO. If you have any questions on that, we'll answer that towards the end as well. But this grant today is to talk about the $7 million that OSN is going to distribute to a really large bandwidth of community-based sport and recreation organizations that are outside the typical PSO and MSO stream. So I think this is just important to put into context just right off the top. As well, before I hand it over to David, I just want to frame this grant a little bit and a bit more about this application. This application has been designed to be very succinct, very user-friendly, and very efficient. And we'll walk through an actual page flip, if you will, to demonstrate that. Throughout the application, we'll be capturing data and key information directly related to the impacts and challenges that your organization encountered throughout the pandemic. So we'll be capturing information on financial loss, maybe a reduction in programming or membership, that type of thing. And ultimately, grants will be issued to eligible organizations that demonstrate financial need and a strategy to sustain their programming with this grant investment. I must say that it's going to be a competitive process. We're expecting anywhere from 5,000 to over 1,000 applications, and our goal is to make sure that if everyone meets the eligibility criteria, that we're able to support your respective organization. But it will be a competitive process. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass over to David, but I just want to stress again how excited we are to provide this opportunity to the sector. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Tommy. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just, Tommy, let me know if it's visible now. Okay, great. So I'm going to start off by saying we've already done at least a couple of these webinars, and they are going to be available for you to view at a later date, like pretty much after today when we're finished the seminar today and tonight. So those went a little bit further into the step-by-step detail than I'm going to right now. I'm going to really flip through really quickly and just sort of show you what's expected and how it all works in a quick way. You could see a little bit more information in those other two webinars when you want. So when you click on the link from the Ontario Sport Network site, you're going to end up on this page where you have the ability to sign up for a new account, or obviously sign back in if you have already signed up for an account. So on this first page, it's going to ask you for basic information: first name, last name, your email address, your phone number, and then to create a password that follows some criteria just to keep it safe. And then once you click create an account, then it's going to tell you that you're receiving an email to your email address, a verification email, just to make sure that you've given your correct email address. So when you get that email, which should be pretty quickly, just click that and it will bring you back here. It'll say, okay, great, we verified. You can sign in with your name and the password that you've created. And it'll be literally like this. So once you get in, because you're first signing in, it's going to take you to this additional information page on your profile. And on this page, this is where you're going to put in your personal address, and then it's going to ask you what the name of your organization is. We don't want acronyms, so let's just say if my acronym here is TSP, no, we want the whole Thornhill Slow Pitch. What is your position title? I put in player, but really what we're looking for here is treasurer, secretary, vice president, whatever your title is on the committee or board of that organization, and what year did you assume that position. Now, if you want to add another organization, because maybe you want to submit for a couple, maybe you're part of 2, 3, 4 different organizations, leagues, academies, etc. You simply have to click add another organization and you'll be able to add as many of these as you want. But just remember, you can only submit one profile. You can only submit one profile per one application per organization. So once you've done that, you have to click and take a look through our privacy policy terms of use. You have to click that you agree on it. And then you have to just click the anti-spam law saying that you do allow us to email you. Once you submit and make the changes, sorry, I've got one in there. I just need to remove it because I put no information. Now it'll say click here to submit an application. Now here, like I said, if you have multiples, you're going to see all of your applications if they're in progress, or you're going to submit a new one. So I had 2 organizations, a Thornhill Slow Pitch and a hockey league. So if I go to submit a new application, I will see the organizations that I have signed up with: Thornhill Slow Pitch, York Alumni Hockey League. Because I already have one in progress for Thornhill Slow Pitch, if I try to put it in again, it'll say, nope, you're already in progress. So if I have that, I can go back to my applications and I can see, oh, right, I had already started that one and I could continue. If I want to start the new one, I literally just have to click this, select this one, save, and it will through. This is the page where we ensure your qualification. So if you've gone through the Ontario Sport Network page, there's a number of frequently asked questions. And obviously the point of this webinar is that you might have some questions about the qualification for these and the eligibility for these applications. So the first thing that we're asking is do you provide operations in Ontario? Obviously you have to be in Ontario. If you're not in Ontario, you won't qualify. If you can't click all of these boxes and 1 within 5, then something will mean that you're not able to qualify. And you could always email us at grants@ontariosportnetwork.ca if you have any questions. The second question is, I can provide full end of year financial statements, such as approved financial statements, year-end financial review engagement letters, review statements, etc., from 2019 to 2021. They will show revenues, cash balances, proof of loss, etc. If we can't present year-end financial statements, I can still present receipts and invoices that demonstrate costs incurred due to the pandemic. My organization is not currently a member of Provincial Sport Organization PSO or Multisport MSO, or my organization is either the PSO or member club of Grappling Association or Racquetball, or my organization can demonstrate significant revenue loss of my league or team due to large reductions in gate receipts, ticket sales, sponsorship loss. Tommy, if you want to just take a scquick second to explain that in a little more detail.
Thank you, David. Yeah, that particular bullet point number 3, I screen shared the announcement on March 8th to put into context where the OSN specific Ontario Sport Network grant fits in. The catchment for this grant is quite large in terms of sports that exist outside the PSO, MSO, so Provincial Sport Organization or Multi-Sport Stream, as well as we're also a nonprofit and for-profit can apply to this specific grant. So things like sport academies, for example, or other businesses. And also there's the opportunity if there are large leagues that have maybe, or teams that have experienced significant losses of gate receipts and sponsorship, they're also eligible for this specific application because it sits outside the PSO MSO 20 million. So the reach is quite broad in terms of this specific application, but the consistent factor is organizations need to demonstrate financial need, and we'll get into the second piece of strategy for that to optimize the funding that's available, and also your operations, your activities need to take place, as David said, in Ontario. So that if there's any specific questions, we can answer them as well towards the end of this webinar, or where David indicated there's a grants at ontariosportnet.ca email address that we're getting questions daily and answering them.
So then my organization can demonstrate financial need due to challenges from COVID, and then of course sort of give us a quick little outline of what were some of those challenges. And if these 4 bullets don't hit it, you can always click other and then describe exactly what you would like to say. I understand that the Emergency Relief Fund administered is to provide financial support for activities and programming not previously supported by other grants. So you have to click yes. So once you've done all that, save and continue, and you move on to now the basic information about your organization. So this is where we get a little bit more in depth in regards to who you are and what you're all about. So are you profit or not for profit? What best describes you? If you are to click club, it will ask you what league you're in. If it'll ask, same thing about sports team, what league is your organization in? Otherwise, they're just simple check boxes. If you've received anything from CERB or CEWS, SECRA, SEBA, et cetera, just describe the nature of the support or put NA. Provide history, highlights, or accolades. This is a place where you have a little bit of chance to just brag about your league or just give a little bit of the personality, the heart and soul of who you are, what you represent. And then we get into organization, mailing information, your website URL. If you have a website, please share it. And then outline whether you're multi-sport, single sport, or recreational activities. Just put in, NA if it doesn't apply to you, or put in which one applies. So in this case, for Thornhill Slow Pitch, obviously we would be a softball league. Where do the majority of your participants come from or live? You can literally just type in any place in Ontario, and it should show up in our list. So whether it's a town, a region, and then you could just add, you can have multiple. So by all means, if you've got a number of places that you're servicing, please do feel free to put in as many as you can. And then we're asking questions about the differences between 2019 and 2021. How many paid employees did you have where you cannot include part-time or temporary staff? Part-time staff in 2019 and 2021, where you can't include temporary staff, and then how many volunteers in 2019 and 2021, including your admin and executives, and then finally your number of participants. How many did you have in 2019, in 2020, and in 2021? This just basically tells a story of obviously what happened before COVID and then since and during. Again, there's a little disclaimer here. OSM will not collect, use, or disclose personal information beyond that which is necessary to process applications and administer the funding in accordance with requirements. We just wanted to let you know that as we ask the question here about who do you typically provide your sports and activities for? And then, of course, do you provide unique and specialized programming sports for underserved groups? So this isn't to say, do you include them? Because obviously, I think a lot of you will be able to say, yeah, we're open to lots of different people joining us. But do you have anything specifically sort of aimed at or targeting any of these groups? And then, of course, you can click those. If none of them apply, click none of the above. And of course, other, you always have the opportunity wherever it says other to describe if there's a difference there. So on this page here, I've already got this clicked, but before I had this clicked, you would see that you have two options for your organization based on size and scope. So if your organization has complete yearly financial statements, you're going to complete the first section, which you see open. If you don't necessarily have all financial statements, if you just have evidence of financial hardships as a result of the pandemic, then you can complete the second section instead. So you're going to have the full one, or you're going to have sort of this one. And this one here, you can claim whether you've got losses over 5,000, under 5,000, and you could submit 3 of your most substantial examples, which might be receipts, invoices, or any other proof of payments made. And you can take pictures with your phone. You can scan them, JPEG, GIF, PNG, PDF, Excel. You give us 3 files, and then just basically describe the hardship and what those 3 files represent. But if you do have your full financial statements, then you're going to give us your 2019, 2020, and 2021 in PDF, Excel, CSV format, and then just tell us a quick little outline of what is in these documents. What were your organization's total revenues? What were your team's total gate receipts or ticket sales? What was your league or team's total annual sponsorship support? And what was your organization's cash balance? So all of that will be told in these documents, but we just want you to give us the quick little highlight summary so that we can understand exactly, the story that you're trying to tell there. And then obviously, if there's a little bit more to the story on the next page here, we're going to get to that. So after filling in that last page, we just basically, you're going to see a quick little message that tells you that you may be eligible for a relief grant of up to $10,000 to $150,000. I mean, the range is because it's a result of the wide spectrum of applications. We have no idea how many we're going to get. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of different factors and elements that go into the judging and analysis. Please note, nothing on this. This is not a confirmation of receiving funds. It's just a preliminary estimate of eligibility. So unfortunately, we can never just tell you, hey, you're eligible or you're going to receive. That will happen after we've had the judging process, but you're going to see that message there. Then, of course, we get into some of the more wordy questions. So you'll take your time and answer some of these. So it starts off with is basically based on the financial and programming impacts of the last few years, to what extent is your organization able to return to pre-pandemic level of operations? So you've got 4 options. Basically, not at all able, you need up to a year to rebuild. Not very able, you need about up to 6 months and then you're up and running. Somewhat able, you need about a month or 2 and you're up and running. Or very able, like you could literally be back in action right away. So you're going to select the one that applies, and then we're going to say, please provide with detail your financial recovery plan and what your organization will be prioritizing in your journey back to full programming. Answer this question, specific examples, how the funds will be used to ensure the sustainability. So here you can literally tell us anything. You've got up to 500 words. And even if you want to give us a tiny little blurb about the financial statements on the previous page and say, listen, as per those, we had this, that, and the other happen. And this is what we're going to be doing if we're able to get some money for this grant. And then, of course, how does your organization positively affect your local community and how would the grant help to improve this? So that's a very specifically loaded question about your community involvement and obviously the impact that you have on the people. So again, take your time and tell that story. These are a maximum of 500 words. You do not have to tell us 500 words. If you only have 100 words, by all means, that's fine. And then, of course, if you're successful and the organization receives a grant, are you willing to provide photos and videos and possibly even be interviewed? Because obviously, if you're successful in receiving this, we would love to be able to show the appreciation to our wonderful government for making this available and possible. So any point during this, you are able to save your answers and come back to them later. So if I were to log out and log back in, it will tell me I have one in progress and I can continue, or I could withdraw my application. If I withdraw, I can come back and I could, start a new one later for that same organization. But assuming that a few hours passed, I come back in, I just confirm that everything that I had put in there is okay, save and continue, save and continue, save and continue. And then this is the submit. Once I'm ready to submit, it's going to ask you, it's going to have a little pop-up. It says, are you sure you want to submit your application? Because once submitted, it cannot be edited or withdrawn. So obviously you only want to click submit when you're completely done. So you have until April 29th. So obviously you don't have to get this in today or tomorrow. Getting it in sooner isn't going to change your eligibility. Take your time, get it done right, because once you click that submit, it's in. So that's a really machine gun version of this presentation. Again, please refer to previous webinars if you want a little bit of a more detailed and slower step-by-step on how this works. But we wanted to make sure that there was lots of time so that we could get to questions and answers and you know, discuss other aspects that the team might want to address. So Tommy, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I just did a little demonstration of how we're going to do questions in a second with the hand up. Fantastic, David. I just wanted to echo, there was a certain part of that, I think it was step 3 with the financials. The challenge that we've had is knowing that there's going to be a wide spectrum, as I said, in terms of organizations, teams, leagues, clubs that may apply. We have set it up such that if you're a smaller club or organization that maybe don't have robust financial records, you're still able to apply. But make no mistake, when you submit the 3 examples, what we've seen with a couple of applications that are in the system right now, it's been like a bit of a log of somewhat like an Excel sheet of profit loss. No, we're actually looking, if you choose option B, of specific receipts. Like you need to demonstrate that there was, for example, just as an example, an investment in PPE or cleaning or extra staff for contact tracing, something like that. But it's a wide array of things that you could input there, but we need some evidence that there were actually costs incurred during the pandemic. Again, this is going to be a competitive process. So the submissions, the applications that go in with precise information, accurate information, and can demonstrate loss, they're the ones that are going to be eligible for this grant. So I just wanted a little clarity on the financial records, if you will, that that you need to present. And the reason we're doing this is something that's strict in our ministry sort of agreement that we have in terms of this grant and putting out this application to the sector, that there needs to be some financial rigor and accountability built into this. So that was fantastic. I think we're at 12:23, so that was great. I think right now we can open up to questions. Bianca, I'm going to pass it over to you to just speak about the process for that.
Yeah, so if anyone has a question, if you can just put up the little hand emoji, it's down at the bottom in reactions. So if you just raise your hand, I will ask for you to unmute, and then you'll be able to ask your question. All right. So we're going to have Andy first.
Yeah, hi. I've got a number of questions. So under the one section where it talks about employees, the part-time employees, are our contracted employees, for example, referees and officials, considered part-time, or do we just leave them out because we consider them contracted employees?
That's a great question. And actually, we received a similar question in one of our previous Zooms as well. This gives you an opportunity to tell us the story of how you're staffed. So in your specific example, you can put them in as part-time. One thing, even if they're contractors, one thing that we wanted to stress, especially around this zone, is one thing we perhaps missed is the seasonal nature of sport. So what we're looking at is in peak time. So for example, in your respective sport, sorry, you're from a hockey league, hockey association?
Correct.
Yeah. So if it's the fall to sort of winter month is we're not looking at year round, we're looking at that particular time when you would be having full-time staff or contractors or part-time. What's the log? What's the narrative of pre-pandemic 2019, 2020, 21? So I think that allows us to sort of see the journey that your organization has gone through. Does that answer your question, Andy?
Yeah, so I would include those officials as part-time employees then, basically. Okay, I have a couple other questions really quickly. Under volunteers, obviously we have coaches that volunteer. Do we include those under the volunteer section?
Are the coaches paid employees as well?
No,
So they're volunteer coaches. Include coaches then if they're volunteer. The challenge here is to David's point is there will be clubs or organizations where they would deem their coaches not volunteer because they receive some sort of payment or a stipend or have some sort of agreement that's monetary. But if you classify your coaches as volunteers, they're volunteers, then you'll log them consistently. I think the key piece is don't count people twice.
okay. And one last question regarding financials. So we have 2 financial statements available of those 3. We haven't, our 2021s are not completed yet. Will we complete both sections then?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
So under the heading in terms of submitting financial statements, we have the 2019 and 2020 that is complete. 2021 is not complete yet. So I'm assuming we still complete the second section, which would provide us an opportunity to provide more detail about 2021.
Perfect. Yeah. And is there a way to do how in terms of progress, how far along are you on the 2021? It's not fully complete. Is there a way to do interim, or is there a way to subject to final? I'm just trying to think if there's
a draft.
Yeah. Can you?
Okay, I can check with finance to see if there's any type of draft. They're in the middle of that process right now, but that won't be ready until probably sometime in May.
Okay, but you can put that in the note that it's a draft or maybe watermark it draft. But again, all of us, we're going to have a review panel. We're going to be looking at all these financial records. But if you indicate in the notes there that it's a draft, and again, it's going to tell us the story. And we have some different components underneath that, with the specific one being your balance, cash balance, tells us the journey that your organization has gone on for the last couple of years. But great questions.
Yeah, sorry, I just have one final question in terms of being the league, and we're the umbrella for all of our clubs. We had planned to push this out to our clubs as well, so they can apply. Will that have any impact on our application if there are clubs that apply and they're successful?
Not at all. That's a great question. We actually, I think it's in one of our FAQs as well. The league can apply, but you should not be doing an application on behalf of teams, if that makes sense. So each team should put an application on its own, but you're doing an application based on the management of the entire league. Other team sports are going to be like that as well, where and there may be the situation where a team actually manages the league. We have to make sure that they're those special cases. David, you're doing a highlight right there. You almost have to do separate because it's going to be hard to decipher. David, do you have anything further on that? Because I think we did catch that.
I was just going to say, so if you've got, Andy, if you're going to encourage these teams to submit an application on their own, make sure that if they click that they're a sports team, make sure that they all put in that they're part of the league. Because that obviously helps from an organizational standpoint as well. And then you're obviously going to handle just the league overall. And then the only other point is I was going to ask, do these teams, do they keep individual financial records for each team themselves?
Yes, and they have to submit those to the league for approval.
Yeah, then as far as I'm concerned, you're good.
Perfect. No, great questions. I like, David, where you highlighted that. We have it at a couple places where please put the full name of your respective sport team or your league, but no acronyms, because there's so many acronyms across the sector here. And just a note, we'll be cross-verifying with certain sports where where let's say it's a certain team sport, to make sure with the PSO partners, the goal here is to make sure that there's the opportunity for each club or organization to receive a grant, but not 2 grants. So you cannot be applying for via that PSO stream funding and also this OSN grant stream. So this capture gives us full names, full descriptions of your teams, but we're going to cross-reference that as well. But great questions, Andy. I really wanted to specify that log of people, whether they're staff or they're volunteers or they're part-time, that it should be in peak period. How many people did you have? So it's not year round. That makes sense. Bianca, next question.
Yeah. So next is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Anusha. There we go, Anusha.
Hi, I'm from a nonprofit organization. We offer an Ontario after school program, and of course, yes, we lost funding through external funding through the agency because of fundraising, as well as we used to have a portion of funding through United Way. As you all know, the Ontario after school program has a big component with physical and recreational activity. So I just want to know if we were eligible to apply. And then the other piece is in terms of our 2021 audited financial statement, that's going to be only ready in the second week of June.
Okay, so sort of two parts to that question. Now, the first part, this after school organized activity, is that captured under your respective school board, or is this is a separate entity?
So like I said, we're a charitable organization, and we get funding with the Ministry of Heritage, Tourism, Culture, Sport to offer the Ontario after school programming.
Yeah, again, I think the best one on that, because that may require further detail. We have had some questions around charities and foundations, for example. As long as you're directly responsible for specific programs, like let's say it's an after-school program on multi-sport,
Yes.
you can apply for this.
Yep.
But what this is not meant to be is if you're offering, for example, bursaries for other activities or other teams, this is meant to be you're directly responsible for.
We're directly responsible, and of course we lost financial support due to pandemic, so we had to cut down on staffing because of this. So we had to scale back on our services.
Anusha, I would recommend that I would assume that you would want to click that you're a nonprofit, obviously here, and then you would click that you would probably put other.
Okay.
And you could put after school program. You could discuss the type of programming that you're offering, and if you need like a little more, just a little more space, right here, history, highlights, and accolades of your organization, and tell us the story.
Okay.
Yep. And then your second part of the question was similar to Andy's. I think if you're not finished your year end on 2021, do a draft, like a sort of like what you're, because you're obviously working through it right now. We're obviously near the end of that fiscal, but you can put in the notes explaining that, because again, we're going to need some log of the year that's passed, but it's not final.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Good question.
Okay, so next we have BGC Durham.
Good afternoon. It's Kathleen and Marnie here. We are with BGC Durham, which is formerly known as Boys and Girls Club of Durham. So Anusha, this may sound familiar to you. My questions sort of tag on to both Andy and Anusha's. The first one being with the financial statements, ours will not be ready till May as well, but I can tell you right now that our board would not let a draft copy out. Those are just draft for internal purposes until it's approved by the board, and that won't be until June. So in that particular case, we have our audited financials for both 2019 and 2020, but I know right now I won't even have the opportunity to send out a draft. So in that particular case, what is recommended for the 2021 fiscal?
David, I'm going to put this over to you just because that, unfortunately, the way this program is set up, a file needs to go in there, but maybe there's a way for if they're not official or won't be allowed to be submitted, something can go in there with notes attached.
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, I would say that if you literally can't submit a 2021, I would literally create an Excel file that says, unfortunately, we cannot submit 2021 files. And submit that Excel or a PDF, just in the format, because we've made it so that it can only accept like what's meant to be, official financial documents. So if you just have a PDF or an Excel that just basically says, unfortunately, we cannot provide the draft of this, then, just go ahead, create it, select it, and then
Absolutely.
upload that. And then it could be part of the story that you're telling, on the next page when you're explaining how funds would be used and what's going on there.
Okay.
I guess, Tommy, I mean, the other thing, Tommy, is that theoretically, I mean, they also would have the option of submitting under the one where they don't have the complete yearly financial statements.
It could.
I just don't
Yeah.
know if it'll tell, I don't know if it'll tell the full story in the way that they would want to.
No,
Right.
no. But just to be clear, like I was going to get into timelines later, that this is due on April 29th, but we will be evaluating all of these applications mostly during the month of May. We have to publish a list to the ministry on May 23, but something like that, the system will flag it and we would directly follow up with you. Because by that point in May, maybe you're further along in your audited statement, but we need to do from our accountability standpoint, we would need to follow up for sure on that specific 2021 piece, because again, this is going to be a very competitive process, and we need to, as much as possible, have accurate evidence of financial loss. So,
So sorry, Kathleen and Marnie. So even if you can't, put out the draft, are you still able to at least share the answers to these questions informally?
Yep.
So at least that will tell the story,
Right.
and then we'll know. And then, like Tommy said, if we've got the story, then we can at least follow up when and if necessary.
Okay, that sounds great. Then the other question further to what we were talking about, we offer the after-school program as well, and it is supported through the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture. However, we do offer an aquatics program that has nothing to do with the ministry. So would that allow us to apply for this? The fact that we receive funding for the after-school program, would that negate our opportunity, or?
Are you running the aquatics as a separate organization?
Not as a separate organization, but as a separate program.
Okay.
Under Boys and Girls Club of Durham or BGC Durham.
So if your application is shaped all around just that specific activity, because you're funded separately, that submit your application around that. There may be other examples where it's a certain multi-sport organization that receives funding from other streams. Let's say they're PSO, let's say they do rowing or tennis or something like that, but there's a specific, it could be pickleball. They also do pickleball. Pickleball is not a recognized PSO, and they had lost programming. They would be filling out, the organization would be filling out this application for that specific activity. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we have to.
And given that we are BGC, we're Boys and Girls Club, do we fill out club, or we're an authorized rec program? So do we fill out recreation? Or do we just do the not-for-profit other?
Sounds to me like recreational association, but because I think a club and a sports team are kind of in that sort of similar, like you'd be part of a league. If you click club, you're part of a league. So I think you're either recreational, or again, if you're an after school program, like we said to Anusha there before, you might be other, and you might put in after school. Okay, and at the risk of hogging the floor, one final question. As on step 3, if we are submitting our financials and it says, it determines, wow, you guys have lots of money, would it then tell you not to continue, or it would just say you may not be eligible, please continue type of thing? Because in the example you showed, it said you may be eligible and you continued on. Would it flag you as a little bit of a litmus test? Like, why are you even applying? No,
Don't bother.
No, it will not. It will not turn you down because you have, because you have a good cash balance or success. It's not going to turn you down. It's not going to tell you no. The only reason that you would be stopped is if, number one, you didn't qualify on the step 1 page, if you didn't check all these boxes, or if you didn't do the right type of file, or if you put a duplicate file. So if you tried to put your 2020 statement as 2021 as well, it would say you can't duplicate the file.
How did you know?
Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah. But it's not going to say you have too much money, you're not allowed to apply. It's not.
No,
gonna
yeah. But to be clear, to be clear, it is something we're asking the question for a reason. It is going to be when we demonstrate need. It's one of the factors that we take into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct? Yeah. So there's
just judging after the fact, absolutely, but it's not going to stop you in the application process.
Okay. Thank you, David and Tommy.
Great questions.
Okay.
Bianca,
If
we probably have
anyone-
time for a couple more, I'd say. Yep,
yeah,
two or three
if
more.
anyone else has any questions, if they just want to raise their hand.
Again, I think I just want to put this here just as a thank you, but just to carry on this dialogue. If you have any questions at all after this webinar, or if you're going through the application, or you're looking at frequently asked questions and your specific organization has it's not captured in that FAQ, please reach out at this grants at ontariosportnetwork.ca email, and we will respond to you within 48 hours. We're also going to be hosting another webinar tonight, but then we're actually in the works of planning for one next week as well, just based on interest. But please, thanks again for joining. We hope to see your submissions. This is a great opportunity.
Sorry, Tommy, if I can make a quick note. So, and then for those webinars, because everybody here signed up, to receive the notification, you'll receive an email about the upcoming webinars as well.
Great. So thanks everyone. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon.